Welcome to another review and discussion. I am the Angry Raccoon.
I'm Ferret.
And I'm Ace.
And we are going to be doing a one on the, well, at the moment right now it's somewhat of an exclusive film for England and parts of Ireland and Scotland as well, understandably, but that's going to be for Trainspotting 2, which is also known as simply just T2 for whatever reason. It's officially called T2 Trainspotting, but we're going to call it Trainspotting 2 because that's what it is. And we're essentially going to jump straight into it, although we will say first this was a pretty big anticipated film for I think all three of us, including the other person I did see it with, who was Recess, who was a good friend of the podcast. And we finally saw it just under a week after it was released. And we're going to say, because usually we do go into like the story and the spoilers on like these kinds of videos, but for this one we're essentially going to just kind of talk about why the film is good, because not everyone is going to see it, because if I remember correctly, from February 10th, which is after this review and discussion goes up, most of the world is going to go see it, or will be able to see it. So at the moment it's still somewhat of an exclusive film. Don't really want to throw those spoilers out there and then have other people spoil it for other people, which would just suck. So for the most part, let's talk about the film in as best way as possible without avoiding as many spoilers, if that's even possible, regarding the fact this is a sequel.
So, obviously the film's based on Irvine Welsh's book Porno, which it follows similarly plot-wise. We continue with the characters 20 years later, and they've taken what feels like natural steps in their life. They're exactly where you'd expect each of them to be.
Yeah, that's what I really liked about it. It felt like that this film could only be achieved after waiting that portion of time. It actually you feel the weight of the 20 years affect every single character.
Yeah,
and I think that's very clever. It's a very smart way they've done it, because most movies, when they make a sequel, they just try outright just to make shit.
It literally comes out next year or something.
Or it's already pre-planned, or you know, there's no real chemistry. Or you feel like the first film was lacking in something because they want to make 5 more films and they want to develop the characters over those 5 films. But instead we've got 2 solid films that essentially have good characters and good story throughout, because that was one thing I really liked about this film, was even despite the fact there has been, both within the film and over real life time, 20 years, it really does feel like these are characters meeting up again with each other after 20 years, and how that would react, and obviously what happened at the end of the first film and all that, which does create for some interesting discussions and obviously some interesting things that happen with them, which I really liked, especially the fact that for the most part, mainly in the beginning and somewhat toward the middle, every character kind of had their arc for the most part in a sense, and then it all kind of came together perfectly towards the end to kind of like bring it all together and, you know, close it, which I thought was a very awesome way to kind of do it.
To raise another point, that really did, I mean, to build on your point, what I loved about that is that you felt in the first movie you didn't really experience much of Spud or Bigby's goals and motivations, how they felt. They were a big part and vital parts of the movie, but they didn't have this much focus on.
There's a lot more of them in T2.
A lot of depth, and that's what I really loved. I loved the development of Spud's character throughout the entire movie, rather than I found myself rooting for him more than the others.
Because I mean, where you kind of see him in the film, it's kind of in a somewhat dark place, and you kind of is a bit sad as well, because, you know, referencing the first film, he was in a very awkward position between these 4 characters, and to kind of see him take this arc and kind of do this with his life and his story is very interesting. Even the same with Bigby, because you kind of get to see a little bit more of him, because he was always that kind of loose cannon character, and you kind of see that there is just a bit more to him in the terms of like what actually happens in his life and what actually revolves around his life, which was also great to actually give, you know, like you said, those 2 characters just that bit more, because everyone's pretty much here to see Renton, and you know, how's Renton going to react to all the other characters, and
Sick Boy as well,
you know, and you know, what's Sick Boy going to say and all this kind of stuff. But I think it was very important to have these guys have a little bit more and enough as them as a relationship, and even to the point where they do have a scene together, which is quite interesting, and they do kind of reminisce on the past or the first film, which is something I want to bring up as well, was the fact that this film does reference the first one. And I would say, I think we'd all say, definitely watch the first film before you watch the second one. Although when we did watch it with Recess, he did say that he still enjoyed the film despite the fact he hadn't seen the first, which I guess just from his standpoint, he was still able to enjoy and understand the film, which is quite interesting.
He didn't see the first one.
He hadn't seen it. He was meant to, but he hadn't. But he still enjoyed it, and he still understood it for the most part. There were a few things he didn't quite get, but he still understood it. And I think that's one thing the film also excels is it does nostalgia and it does references very, very well. It was very tasteful in the fact that it wasn't just the film didn't stop at the beginning and go, let me recap Trainspotting, you know, or anything like that. It kind of fed you things, and for those who have seen the first film, you know, I remember that scene, or I remember that moment, and I can reminisce to that character, and you know, I know what he means by that. But at the same time, it worked for anyone who hadn't seen it because it's a bit weird in some sense.
One thing I really wanted to say is I think Sick Boy actually says it himself that about the nostalgia vacation that they kind of go on, and that's actually not only just reflective of like the film itself and kind of sequels in general, how they're always heavily reliant on on the previous film, and they just kind of imitate that. And I think the film did very good commentary on that in general.
Yeah, which I wasn't exactly expecting, because it obviously, I'd imagine it might have been somewhat referenced or explained in the book, but I'd imagine it's probably something that Danny Boyle probably added in to kind of have that kind of have that say, because infamously we know that like Danny Boyle purposely waited 20 years instead of 10 years when the book actually takes place, mainly because he wanted that extra effect of having the characters look older, because meth addicts age much faster than regular people do, which is a incredible touch. And
heroin
addicts and
meth.
massive bit of restraint coming from him, and just it helps in the sense, because I'd imagine if you go from the first film to the second film straight away, you're going to see a dramatic difference. I know some of the shots, especially when they show the past versions of Renton and Sick Boy pretty much running down the street in that iconic scene, and you kind of have those as like weird flashbacks, you know.
It wasn't Sick Boy, it was Spud.
Was it Spud? Okay. You know, have those shots, and then I know Recess was saying to me how he was like, oh man, they were so young back then, you know, it's so weird, you know. which is quite interesting. And I even like those kinds of shots where even in the beginning where they show a few seconds of the ending of the first film, and you know, those scenes with that, and you know, other general references to that film, which was great as well.
And to just build on that, it did the best scenes in the movie when they were just looking back, and when they're looking back on the past, and what I liked about it feels organic. The way they look back on things is like how
like
actual people
a human would. You know?
I mean, not a movie character would.
Not like, remember that time when I shot up the place and I did it, you know,
jumped out the window.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
flying building.
We're partly making fun of like action films and like bad writing and that stuff, but it does happen a lot of the time when I guess a film nowadays tries to be smart and tries to go, remember that time when I did this, or they all.
So Star Wars: Force Awakens.
I guess you could say that. That would probably be the prime example, but I think that film is definitely one of those films where it's like, instead of just referencing, we're also going to remake it, because that's as much as we're only worth, unfortunately.
Which sequels, unfortunately, are quite a lot.
And this film is rare because it feels like its own thing.
Yeah. And a lot of the stuff that I definitely remember from it, and I'm probably going to see this film again, is the newer stuff. There are some amazing new visuals.
Oh, yes.
Which it does the same kind of thing in the first Trainspotting, as it's more of a surrealist way of showing what the characters are feeling. Perfect.
I would say that some of the visuals are a little bit more dreamlike in this one compared to like surrealist and psychedelic in the first one, which I did like, because it kind of made sense going back to the whole nostalgic kind of theme, because it is like looking back, reflecting, thinking, dreaming, that kind of thing, which I did like. Ferret, you're pulling frownies.
It's just because what I think, all of those like digital effects they added onto the thing, I think that was unnecessary. I really didn't like that.
Which shots in particular?
Am I okay to say it?
As long as it's not spoiler heavy.
As long as it's in the trailer.
It's just, it is when Spud writes his signature in midair.
Oh,
that was so stupid.
I like to think of that as more of a reference to Quentin Tarantino and some of the things that he was inspired by. But
I know, but it felt. I think the effects, what they added to it, made it feel a bit too dreamy.
I think that was kind of the point.
But I didn't like that.
That was
Okay.
kind of.
I know. I understand where you guys are
We're
coming
not
from.
going
but I
to
thought
slaughter you for it.
No,
We just throw you out the window, you know.
It's a hard cut, and then he's gone.
I know that what you
Yeah,
both mean by that, but I didn't like that.
Okay.
Of the shots I can understand.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the shots I did like, especially one scene in particular involving like Renton and Spud when they first meet. I thought the way that shot was done and the way what it kind of meant was fantastic as well. Yeah. It's partly in the trailer as well, and I like the scene where they're in the car and it's got like this weird like kind of it's showing like what they're talking about on this weird like superimposed kind of effect. It's super weird, but it kind of works, as well as the other shot where they're in Spud's room and they're having a bit of a moment, the three of them. That's all I'm going to say. You know, stuff like that really worked for me. And I also, one thing as well was the lighting as well. This is definitely a more dramatically lit film than the first one, which I really liked as well, especially because it didn't feel like too filmy and too stupid in some sense. Like it didn't feel like, oh, they obviously lit that with a green filter. It felt like, oh, okay, he's down an alley and the green lights on, stuff like that.
And when it does come to his digital effects, something I would say, I think that's kind of reflective of the industry as a whole. Like obviously the first one, it was very gritty, and back then, British films in general were that. They didn't have all those effects.
And had almost no money as well.
And nowadays, almost every film will have these effects, whether it's needed or not, and that's what I liked about it.
I guess for me that's just a clash of what
I
culture.
understand,
clash of culture. I loved because I love all those gritty dark looking films. Not talking about emo.
Like it's got pulp because it was shot on film, that kind of stuff. Yeah.
I mean, a lot of the shots do also kind of feel very practical as well. Like, for example, the scene when they're in Spud's room, that is a shot that is very simplistically done and would need no special effects. Another shot in particular would be the... oh my goodness, I'm forgetting it. There's one shot where you kind of have like the montage with Spud and then you kind of see his like shadow as he's kind of off somewhere else. That's a very kind of creepy shot, but kind of adds a lot to it at the same time. And that's something that only literally does is just a little bit of good editing, which is fantastic for the most part.
But with the special effects, I thought they were really done well, but I thought it was a bit unnecessary.
I can understand.
I get
like
that.
when I shouldn't say it, but it was just when Renton visits his family. That's all. There was a scene that I really didn't like.
Is this the one involving a shadow?
Yeah. It's involving a shadow. I thought that was unnecessary.
I thought it was handled tastefully.
I thought that was done well.
I loved the idea behind it, but I just thought they're trying to. I thought what I liked about the first one, it felt very realistic in a weird way, but it felt surreal. But this one feels like it's pushing the mark a bit. It's trying to be too artsy.
I can understand exactly what you feel. It's somewhat coming a bit too big for its britches, almost getting to a slight pretentiousness.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
I can
what I
understand.
liked about the first one, it was very subtle the way they did it, and sure you could say it was surreal because in the first one he went down a toilet into a giant
He
lake.
became Mario for a minute.
Yeah, but the way they did it wasn't pretentious or anything. It was very creative.
But you have to remember, if he were to make a film exactly like the first one, it would either get slammed because it had that gritty style, or other kind of issues, or we'd probably be saying, oh, they just do the same thing over and over again, or you simply wouldn't be able to make another film like Trainspotting. Unfortunately, that's kind of the way the industry.
I'm not trying to say make it exactly the same. I'm just trying to say make it
like if it was more grounded.
Don't down with the artsy farts.
Or if they had done it more organically, like more practical effects.
That's what I mean. Stuff like that.
I can completely understand. I was less bothered by it, but I do see your point. The thing that I wanted to talk about, like this is probably going to be the last bit I want to talk about, that last shot. Obviously, we're not going to spoil it or anything, but I think it was fantastic.
I mean, the film as a whole is very good.
Yeah.
And it's not until the last 30 minutes where it gets very good, and you're like, oh my god, this is like... Oh, it's frowning more again.
There was one bit I thought was a little bit too cheesy, and I'm just gonna, visualize it for you. Yeah. That was a bit too cheesy for me. But everything else around that bit was fine.
Oh, yeah. The build up to that and after that I thought was very good, and that final shot kind of just complete the film in a sense for me, and I really do like that visual, and it was very distracting when, that visual was happening and the people were getting up, and I'm like, how do you know it's finishing?
Yeah.
Which did that the same happen for you as well?
Yeah.
Okay, even before the credits came up?
Even before.
Yeah.
Oh, gee,
This is weird.
some people are so impatient.
They
Yeah,
are.
exactly.
London, everyone's rushing about.
Yeah. Shit, I gotta get on the underground.
That's a
Yeah.
bit distressing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it was. I really like the third act, and I understand what you mean by that scene.
Yeah.
But I still think it was like definitely it built up very well to that final moment in
Yeah.
a sense. I guess one of the last things we should definitely mention if we're going to talk about Trainspotting 2 is the soundtrack, which I
Yes.
thought was very good as well. I thought.
Ooh, okay. we're getting more for
We got one.
We're getting
Up.
like anger now.
Yeah.
I'll just wait for my bit and I'll unleash everything.
I liked the use of the music. I thought they definitely had a lot more experimental and kind of music that was a bit more like out there and a bit more random for the sake that kind of fell into the randomness of the film. And I think it was very odd, I would say, but I still think it was definitely well put together. And every song as itself is definitely a very good song. But I think maybe as a soundtrack, it's not as, I guess, let's say, grand as the first one. If you want to go there, but I basically what I'm saying is all the songs were fantastic.
Yeah.
As a soundtrack, it's not like oh, it's the best soundtrack of the year, that kind of thing. But I do like the choice of music and how it was used and how it was incorporated for the most part.
I'm not gonna comment on the music, so I can't remember it too well. But
I think that's a comment in itself.
Well, yeah, but
yeah.
I mean that's the thing. I haven't seen Trainspotting for like several months, and I can't remember the music in that either. So I can't really compare. So I'll just let Ferret go on his tangent.
Just unleash what the negative aspects of what I think the film has. Right, I think the film, in general, I think if you think about it all together, and it doesn't have that much plot.
Mm-hmm.
There's not much to build on.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The only actual thing they have is the conflict with Big B and the rest of the gang.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right? What I didn't like is that there was a lot of unnecessary things just to filter and build up the time.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
There were a lot of scenes which I hated. It doesn't make sense. Really doesn't make sense. Nor does it add to the plot. And it even contradicts itself.
Okay.
A lot of scenes. And it just... That's what annoyed me a lot. It just felt a lot of forced scenes.
Right.
And one of the characters really annoys me.
Mm-hmm.
And the ending really, really, really annoys me.
Regarding her kind of
Regarding
the woman.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the build and the scene, the final scenes with Big B and the rest of the gang. I like the build up to that just before the scenes with Big B and the final confrontation. I like the scenes building up, but the final scene was really poor in my opinion.
Okay. I mean, one thing I did want to say that was probably my negative was how I think the structure was more traditional, like compared to the original Trainspotting, which felt a lot looser and more natural flowing because of it, compared to this felt very first act, second act, third act.
It did, yeah.
But that's probably my only negative compared to obviously your
rant.
You have more of a nitpick, I would say, Ace, and you have obviously some details or some negatives that can be gone into greater detail. I think possibly in your own video.
Because in the middle, it really messes up. The whole story gets a bit fuzzy and it messes up, and it doesn't know what it's doing, and it's trying to force its way to the end.
Mm-hmm.
I'm waiting for a film detective video now.
I hope so.
And the final thing that I got to say, the film soundtrack was terrible. In my opinion, I didn't like any of the songs. I didn't like the remix. I thought it was really bad. And music in a movie really matters to me.
Alright,
It's what makes or breaks a movie for me, because it adds so much emotion to the area. And it helps me remember movies because music is, all of that stuff. And I thought, I just wanted to hear one song. It didn't have to. It could have been at the end. I was waiting for the entire movie, and I get this remix, and I'm like, "What are you doing, Frankie Boyle?"
Frankie Boyle. Are you claiming the film was made by a comedian?
Danny Boyle. I'm thinking, what are you doing, Danny Boyle?
Well,
what is wrong with you, mate?
I'm not sure if he was responsible for the song not being in there or its remix incarnation. You might have to speak to Underworld. But
Underworld had it in the trailers. That's false advertisement. I should sue
Well,
him.
there is like a I can't remember the exact way you use it, but there is like a kind of a cappella version of it, which isn't on the soundtrack.
That's the remix. That's why.
There's like an actual a cappella of it that's not on the soundtrack. Not the remix. There's an a cappella version.
Really?
Okay.
Yeah, which it only plays for like about a minute.
Oh.
But
I didn't hear it, so it's
I find it very interesting that the film has gone from good to bad because one song wasn't played. But then again,
it was the whole soundtrack. I thought the whole soundtrack.
I know.
Was just so
I think a lot of
bad.
people are going to pick up on that one fact.
Ferret's review 0 out of 10.
0 out of 10. No slippery. But I can understand that. Obviously, it is a very important part of a film, and if it didn't work for you, then I can understand that.
Yeah.
The whole movie just, it builds up well, it gets me excited, and then it just takes away, and it just goes, it just flies away. It's like getting ready for sex, and then you realise she's out of the house. Imagine that. That's how it feels. And you're really excited. You're like, oh, you get
That's
your
a
coat
very
on.
weird analogy.
And then the music doesn't play because the stereo's broken.
Alright, it sounds like you're going into some personal experiences right now.
No. Luckily, I was trying to explain how I feel. That's how I.
So I think we need to wrap this up before we start getting into some dark past and stories. And
T2 is like my sex life. It hurts all the time. Ferret 2017.
Just for a disclaimer, that hasn't happened to me. It was just an analogy to try and explain it all. That's not sarcasm. That's being serious. Why did I say that?
Alright, we're getting off track.
Yeah.
Off track now. But yeah, so I think for the most part, we definitely all enjoyed Trainspotting.
Yeah,
I definitely think it's...
I don't think you say it was a good sequel, which is rare.
I thought it was alright.
I wouldn't say it's better than
see
the
it
original, but it was good for what it was.
It was.
This is not a debate for it, yeah?
It was
'cause
alright.
Opinions.
I was about to become Milo for a second.
But yeah, I definitely really enjoyed this film, and I'm really happy with how it turned out, because for me, it just needed to be good.
Yeah.
And that's what it was. I wasn't looking for it to be better than Trainspotting, because no one can really make a film better than Trainspotting. That's just how it's going to be. Exactly. But it was good. I mean, it could be much worse. It wasn't terrible. We didn't get some other hack director to go, I know Trainspotting, and then he makes some dumb action film. I thought for what it is and what it stands for, which is a good film, and I'm happy with how it turned out, which is fine by me. And I think I don't think any of us regret seeing it if that's the case. And I don't think, and I'm happy that it turned out to be a good film for the most part. But yeah, I think that's pretty much going to do it for the most part. Hopefully you've taken aboard all of our reviews and decided whether you want to actually see this review or not. See this film or not. Well, they mostly be listening to it. And yeah, hopefully it's helped. And yeah, hopefully at least, if anything, we can see more British films actually do well around the world. And I'm hoping, if anything, this film does that. But I guess we'll wrap it up, not unless there's anything else anyone wants to add to the film.
I would say it has been successful so far, so it is making its money back, which is good.
Good. I think that I'd be
especially
happy if it
for
does.
British cinema.
Yeah, which is good.
No, let's just carry on the final scores.
Final score. I don't score things.
You don't score for it?
No, you can give it a score if you want.
I give it 6.
Okay. Pause for dramatics.
Final score. 7 trains out of 10.
Okay, I thought it was good.
Heroin out of 10.
I would recommend it.
Heroin out of 10.
Slightly questionable. But yeah, we're derailing this.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Nice pun, by the way.
Yes. So we'll end it by saying I am the Angry Raccoon.
I'm Ferret.
A Diabase.
And we will see you on the next review and discussion or quick review or anything to do with films whenever that comes up. Alright, laters guys.
Off to E7.
Peace.